Alright, time for chapter 2 of my G4 rant. This chapter is going to be about the beginnings of G4. Now, G4 TV started in April 2002, and I started watching it in 2003 because that's when I got my cable box in here, so... Anyway, unlike TechTV, G4 was dedicated exclusively to video games. And I loved it a lot. I had it on almost 24/7, and the commercials on there didn't really weren't really normal commercials. I mean, half of them were normal commercials, and like the other half are like promos of G4. Like they would show like gameplay footage and stuff like that. That was awesome. But anyway, let's get into the shows. Alright, the first show I want to mention is Blister. And it also happened to be the very first show broadcasted by G4. It was hosted by Bill Sindelar, I think, and it mainly showcased action games, and yeah, there's action game news, previews, and stuff like that. Alright, the next show is Portal, which was dedicated to MMOs such as Asheron's Call, EverQuest, Second Life, and so on and so forth. They also did some machinima in it as well. Alright, the next show I want to talk about is one of my favorites. It's Cinematech. Now, Cinematech mainly featured like cutscenes from video games edited together, and some music edited in there to make it, I guess, different from the gameplay experience. They also sometimes showcase gameplay footage of different games, and yeah, basically Cinematech was awesome. And I heard that Idolmaster was one of the games showcased on Cinematech, so kick ass. Alright, the next show I want to talk about is Cheat, and it mainly focused on tips and tricks for video games. It was hosted by Corey Rouse. He was a good host. And in my opinion, I kind of find Cheat pointless because there's game facts out there. I mean, all you have to do is go on the internet and look up game facts, like game tips, stuff like that. But I guess Cheat did have the advantage of having the tips set to gameplay footage. I mean, YouTube wasn't around back then when this show aired, so I guess that's good, and it's also good for the people who don't have any internet connection, so... Alright, next show I want to talk about is Filter. It's a top 10 video game countdown show. It's hosted by Diane Mizoda, and every show would feature like different top 10 lists centered based on different video game concepts, like top 10 wrestling games, top 10 scariest games, top 10 badasses in video games, top 10 heroes, it's so on and so forth. That was an awesome show. I mean, I guess Screw Attack does something like that now, but anyway, on to the next show. It's G4TV.com. What that show was is hosted by 3 people, I don't remember the names, but anyway, it was an interactive talk show focused on, I guess, video game news, etc. What I mean by interactive is that it featured like it gets the host with like a text chat with viewers of the show while the show aired. So they would answer questions that were asked by different viewers of the show. So that was awesome. And one thing I do remember on that show is that how they covered how Half-Life 2 got leaked out before its release. That was pretty memorable. It was around Halloween, I think, when they talked about it. And they had like a grave with like Half-Life getting leaked on the gravestone, something like that. Okay, this next show I don't recall watching much, but it was called Pulse, and it was like a general video game news-based show. Alright, the next show is called The Electric Playground. Now, from what I understand, Electric Playground was the very first TV show to be based around video games. The very first. I think it premiered in 1995, if I'm not mistaken, but anyway, it was hosted by Tommy Tallarico and Victor Lucas. and they would showcase like different previews from video games. They had like special interviews with game developers and yeah, stuff like that. And it was also quirky in a way that which some of their interviews they use special effects like lightsabers and stuff like that. Alright, next show is Arena. Now, what Arena was, it's a basically focused, I guess you'd call it a game show. It focused on like two teams playing different multiplayer-based games between each other. So games they mainly focused for, I think, for Steel Battalion and Unreal Tournament, and yeah, just mainly PC-based games. And the first two rounds of the competition would feature like PC-based games like Steel Battalion and Unreal Tournament, and the third round would feature console games. And I like that show. I like watching it. I like to watch the two teams battle it out with each other. I mean, some people may not have liked it, but I found it entertaining.